Well, I'm talking with Dr. Mike Apley, who's a veterinarian and professor at Kansas State University, and we're at the NIAA conference looking at antimicrobial resistance and talking about some of the issues there and the importance for kind of bridging the gap between some of the consumers and retailers and their perceptions and what farmers and ranchers see as the need for these products and how veterinarians interact within that system. And Dr. Apley, I wonder if you could first maybe tell me what you see as some of the key takeaways from the first day and a half of this conference.
Well, it was really interesting, and we had a lot of groups here. We had public health, we had consumer groups, we have farmers and ranchers, we have veterinarians, we have academics, we have pharmaceutical industry people, we have everyone's here. I think one of the big takeaways is we had a lot of things to talk about, a lot of interesting things, and we had I think some of the takeaways were consumers' interest in what they're eating. I'm not sure all of their concerns are fact-based. I kind of came away with the thought that sometimes that's kind of fed on, but they do have concerns. I think we reached some, consensus on some things we need to look at as far as our antibiotic use. I propose that we ought to go back and look at some of our feed uses we've used for a long time, and I don't know if that's really consensus, but there seemed to be some agreement that that's not a bad idea. By our calculations from both the FDA data on sales and then also our swine calculations, well, from the overall sales data, probably 40% of what's used in food animals are the tetracyclines, and then our swine estimates about 2/3 of what's used the tetracyclines. So that's a group that maybe we go back and look and make sure it's still doing everything we think it should be.
What's the veterinarian's role? I know you talked in your presentation about the veterinary oversight within antibiotic use.
Well, I think the veterinarians already are, and they need to continue to step out and take the lead. I think we're at a turning point where the veterinarians decide their relevancy to the issue. We either are going to continue to advance and be looked at as the experts in antibiotic use in food animals and expected to take the lead on guiding that use, or we're going to 10 or 20 years from now end up just as signatories to a regulatory formulary that we just have to sign off on that they can use it. And that's really a critical turning point for us. And another thing is it's incredibly important that our producers have a veterinary client-patient relationship and get input on their antibiotic use for food animals. I think it's pretty well agreed that when you put antibiotics into a population, you can change susceptibility profiles of gut flora or pathogens. I think it's also well established that bacteria can travel zoonotically directly from an animal to someone. It can travel that way through the food chain. The question becomes how often and when it has an effect on human health. We had a great presentation by Drs. Scott and Lonergan about their debate where they take certain articles and then try to debate one to take one side and one the other. And it was really informative on how the same data could be looked at two different ways. And we get into some of the genetic techniques and trying to establish families and where things came from, and it becomes super complicated. So I think one of the messages was if we're going to wait for a definitive smoking gun or a definitive this is exactly how it happens, we're going to be waiting for a long, long time.